We must train ourselves to apologize to children as much as they are taught to not talk back to adults. It seems unfair to me that children don't get the apology that they deserve from us when we hurt them with our words, judge them, especially when we hurt them accidentally. They are constantly taught to say sorry for being disrespectful to grown-ups and for doing something that isn't right, but we ourselves are not aware of how much pain we inflict to them by not saying sorry when we hurt them a little too much. Yes, adults are always expected to be right, but that doesn't make their mistakes invisible to children. I have a 6-year-old nephew and we always say sorry to him when we exceed our limitations of giving discipline to him, and I think it has helped him a lot to become a more upright individual who knows how to apologize as well as to forgive. Coming from parents who still never admit when they're wrong, this is a very important issue for me. I've definitely made it a point to admit my flaws to my kids. They're really good at saying sorry too. It's about mutual respect. I think it's good to teach children that authority figures are not infallible, even if you might still be expected to do as they say. Extends to things like police and politicians. I think parents/adults probably don't want to apologize to kids as they're scared that the child will perceive it as them being weak or inconsistent. In reality, it teaches children more about accountability and growth. We are teaching children how to be adults. Adults own up to mistakes and apologize. This is how relationships become strong, not because there is never any trouble but because they are honest and sometimes vulnerable. As a teacher, I like this post. Children learn to trust adults more when you own up to something and apologize, especially in a classroom. I agree. I grew up around adults who would go great lengths just to avoid saying sorry to children, so far as to lie about their mistakes to other adults to get kids in trouble. That's just wrong and awful. I think that this behavior is dragged by many people into late adulthood. Treating younger people than themselves in general like that. Age shouldn't be an excuse or pretext for doing wrong to anyone. Especially kids, they receive that message and some live on to do the same. Admitting to wrongdoing doesn't make you weak or any less respectable, it's being fair and inviting others to do the same. I apologize to my 7-year-old son if I'm grumpy and snap at him for something that's not his fault, and I acknowledge when he has a point on something. I had a lifetime of being told it was my fault my dad got angry, of being shouted at if I dared to express a different opinion, or if I dared to point out someone just lied or was mistaken. You have to watch George Carlin, Child Worship. I agree with this. Far too many adults refuse to own up to their mistakes. You know, the because I say so type. There's nothing I hate more than these kinds of people. I've learned to stay far away from them, having been raised by one such parent. Narcissistic parents right now, raging at this post. Very accurate. My dad hasn't apologized for anything to me for the past 5 years. Anytime he is clearly in the wrong, he just leaves it and hopes I'll forget about it. I try the best I can with my nephew. He has no father figure in his life except me, the closest since his birth, and I am imperfect as hell. I apologize to him when making mistakes, but I'm the adult in the situations. My own parents won't apologize right away and with a bit of sass. I try to give him actual space, both personal/hobbies, and tell what mistakes are his afterwards. The talking back is what gets me annoyed the most. Both of us do agree that kids should talk back when their elders are wrong. He does it with me and I dislike him temporarily, but only because he was right. I wasn't. Learn, people. Kids are human beings. I tell the same to my parents and sometimes they just scoff. My parents never apologized or acknowledged when they were wrong or made a mistake. When I pointed it out, get walloped for talking back. This fucks up the kid. Never do this. If my parents would have apologized to me for the shit they fucked up in my life, even every once in a while, I'd like to think that we would have a different relationship than we do now. I noticed this too with my own nephew. He used to be a little lordling who'd just shout whatever he needed at the time and have it catered to him. As the youngest, he was and still is spoiled by his mother. But gradually, we got him to start doing for himself the little things that he reasonably can, like getting water for himself or charging his own gadgets. We also got him to obey orders, like fetching small things or turning on the lights. What we never forget to do each time he's helpful is thank him. Because of that, whenever we do things he asks us to do, he'd also always say his thanks. I don't have children of my own yet, but I'm having my fair share of practice through my nieces and nephews. Even when they're still children with limited understanding, they can learn if you're patient enough to actually teach them stuff. Before I realized that, I was also just an overgrown brat who expected them to behave like adults. They don't know how to yet. It's up to us to show them how. To any parent or soon-to-be parent who might not have realized it yet, children will grow up and become adults, whether you help them along or not. And when they do, they'll remember how you treated them. Up to you if you want them to look back with gratitude or resentment. I totally agree with this. I've only ever had my parents' apologies to me for their mistakes maybe 3 to 4 times over my 16 years. Biggest lesson I've learned as a middle school teacher. Still remember how, early in my career, I snapped at a group of kids who were really just being silly. I apologized and told them I wasn't mad at them, but crabby about something that happened earlier. There was shocked silence, then one girl said a teacher had never apologized to her before. Was such an important moment for me as a new teacher, and later as a parent. We make mistakes, too. We aren't perfect, and we shouldn't pretend to be. One thing I would add to this is, don't just say sorry for the sake of saying sorry. Say sorry because you actually believe you were in the wrong. More often than not, kids are just taught to say sorry and it is supposed to fix everything. I am a teacher and I always want kids to apologize if they do something that needs to be apologized for. But I never force them. You don't know how many times I have witnessed a kid hit another kid, or push another kid, and when they get caught they say "but I said sorry." Which gives them the idea that they can still do bad things, as long as they are prepared to say sorry. So it is an empty apology. It's okay to not be sorry, but it's not okay to continue to do those types of things. Side note, even if they are sorry, and actually mean it, there should always be a consequence. Because even if they are not sorry, they know that the continuation of the act will have repercussions. This trickles into adulthood, relationships, employment, etc.